So I hope you guys had a chance to look at the documents that we sent you emailed yesterday. So I'm just gonna, go really quickly just to remind ourselves. I hope that you already read it, but just you may not have. So so what we discussed last time, we talked about the components of the curriculum, which are we had like kind of two portions. One was preparation portion, including teacher training and student assessment, and the other part was the actual curriculum, which starts with the project planning, explaining about project planning and management, so that the students can use that kind of the ideas in perhaps their entire life. Not in the class. So the actual curriculum part was social justice. We may change the title of the subject, but this is what we talked about, and we want to put some interesting stuff in this curriculum, including arts, technology, sports, and happening in different places and environments. And we also set up our goal for the curriculum, which is to identify social justice issues pertinent to local and global communities. And the rationale behind that was to increase awareness and activate community agencies, which is going to basically empower people in the community. Class length and frequency, 2 hours per week and 45 minutes per session. And this is just a scratch paper if you want to, just read. So what I want to ask you before we start our discussion is, do you have anything to add? Or after our session, last time you went back home and then you thought about it and it seems like it's not going to work, or you may have something that, we need to add something on top of it kind of thing. Is there such thing? Or you may have thought about it and you forgot for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks.
Just to mention about, actually it was your idea. When you say, okay, our class is about social justice, that sounds so boring to the students, maybe. So maybe we can still keep the same content, but name in another different way.
A global citizenship course or something, maybe not more fancy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like that.
It's just I throw it now. Because you're right, like it might be what? Like they might think that they're going to learn boring history, like civil
But
things.
even before we start, they're going to go like,
Or leadership, global leadership course, whatever. Because we also aim to make them active agents to do some things.
Yeah, actually, leadership. The word leadership is really great because they feel like they are
Because they're high
really
school
empowered.
students and then they're applying to college and
they feel like they are something, right?
yeah, exactly. And then because in high school they really worry about where they are going, what is next. So it might be something tempting for them
to their realities and exactly.
I just have a crazy idea that it's a very casual terminology, like move your ass. Move your ass.
Dash global.
Today's topic, move your ass.
Is it recording?
Motivation.
Yeah, you're gonna propose this to a policymaker, so we're gonna have moved your ass class in our policymaker.
It's going to love it. Oh, before we go on, sorry to interrupt. So today's goal is there to make a. So I want to make a draft of the project today, and next week we will finish and polish all the details of the project. And we don't have the real class to implement yet. Hopefully we will have one.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. What happened with this colleague of yours? Whatever. Okay, I didn't ask.
But yeah, I mean, he has a personal issue, so he couldn't reach. That's
so
it.
it seems like they're gonna go with Bridget's class.
Yeah.
Which is gonna happen
In the spring.
Yeah,
in
so
the
she can
spring.
use it for next.
I think it's perfect because also she has been as a
Yes,
like
she's back
participant.
on
I guess she's
Wednesdays,
coming now.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah, soon in 1 minute.
That's what preach it.
So any idea for the titles of our curriculum?
Still confused. We say that we want to implement it to a standard curriculum course, but do we insert in the middle of the course, or do we embed it in a course?
It's gonna be,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't.
I don't understand, sorry.
Okay, so let's say Bridge. If she wanna use that project, does she have to assign? Does it have to have more extra time other than her normal curriculum
Yeah.
class,
So
or is it
embedded
just
it into,
yeah
incorporate
embedded, right, right,
I
right.
think embedded.
Yeah, because like
That would
standard
be
curriculum.
ideal.
Yeah,
think so
standard
too.
curriculum doesn't have this kind of classes, so
Yeah.
you've got to basically add after class or whatever extracurriculum
Because,
it's going to be, right?
you know, remember in our first discussions, because such things are, if they are not incorporated with the actual classroom, like math or whatever
Right,
Bridge is
right.
going to teach, otherwise they are remain to teach in the last 2 days of the school, you know, just to have something.
Only if they have extra time.
Exactly.
Right. The
I mean,
teachers don't
that's-
have time.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that also our goal that we can,
Propose it in a embedded curriculum or
yeah, embed it,
Incorporate.
but we want like teachers from different areas can use in their classrooms, which
Right.
does not have any borders or boundaries.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it was our first discussions.
Yes.
Right. How about we focus on Bridget's class, and it would be a science class?
Mm-hmm.
So still the same concept, but on top of the science environment. So for
Sure,
example,
sure.
for social justice, we can focus more on the science field.
And we see, like, I mean, I don't know how it will go, but what's your plan? I don't know, but how she will be like experiencing in science, teaching like citizenship, or like, is she going to just focus on one part of the global leadership or education, or is she going to cover all in her class? Do I make a sense?
Well, the
Yeah.
ideal is that, you know, all over the course.
So she incorporates everything in her class, not just keeping, okay, I will take technology because I'm teaching science, or is she going to cover everything? Or ideally, do we ask teachers to cover everything or not? Just to pick one side, what their class is, and then exclude all other parts.
Is the question that we teach the students like leadership explicitly, because this is a science class, right?
Yeah.
Science class, that let's say it's about biology.
Yeah.
And then is your question that in the second class or third class we stop everything, we give some leadership class to to the guys and then continue in the first, fourth one, or I think your point is we continuously give them, pump them leadership skills.
Right.
And then throughout the class we watch the students, you know, learning the leadership, how it works, and start building up teams and leading
And that's
teams.
what I want to say, because then all our teaching is in a way restricted with, you know, like I'll just teach like animals or ocean and then nothing else. So what we want to achieve in this course is like we want to break this classical mentality that I only teach ocean in this class and nothing else, because this class is biology. So that's what I remember we were discussing, to break it and then make it like global citizenship or leadership in every subject matter. Regardless, it's because
Right.
it's always like the responsibility is given to history teachers or social science teachers, not to chemistry teacher.
It can work as, I think, from my perspective, I mean, again, I'm not from this field, but in the beginning of the class, the first day, the teacher can talk about these are the goals of this class, and then we're going to learn science this semester, and we're going to learn how to be a leader in this learning activity. And then across the classes, there's going to be some leadership classes, 10 minutes every day, and then some projects for the students. Let's say every class, one student does a presentation. They have a team of 3, everybody's divided to a team of 3 or 4, then they take the leadership of presenting the animals. Somebody does the plants, somebody does insects. So you watch those teams because you teach them the importance of leadership. In one team, you assign a leader. He's responsible for everything. And then he has people in that team who are collaborating, who are executing. And then maybe he has a project manager who is watching the thing. So you basically put the rules, show those small kids of what to do, put them in a boat, and say, go to that island now. And you watch them. If they go to the wrong place, you bring them back to the reality. So you start pumping them leadership skills, like in a structured way. So they present. So instead of going the traditional way that the teacher teaches, it's one way. You have the student teaching a student, which is great. So they can do one team can work for the other team at the same time after school, and they can collaborate. This is also a good leadership skill. And,
Yeah, I like the idea. How about this? So we can create a sort of tool that teachers can use. Like you said, so as a teacher, how can you evaluate the students are going to the mountain, not to another place? And another thing is, how can you pull out and bring them in the loop?
it depends on your
Yeah.
goals. It depends on if you are the right teacher. I mean, the teacher is very important here. The teacher has to be in a very good understanding of the concept.
Right.
Like, as you said, how can you measure that they're going the wrong road? You can have a checklist saying that, is the leader doing his job? If you ask the leader of how the project is going, do I get the right answers? Do they have conflicts? Somebody doesn't show up or he doesn't do his homework. So one person's fault is costing the whole team to fail. And they will have conflict. They're going to shout at each other, they're going to fight. How do they take care of those things? How is the relationship going? And maybe there's a team and the leader is not doing anything. That's not a good leadership. Then you talk to the leader and say, why are you not showing up to the meetings? Like, you're supposed to represent your team, but you don't do that. What's the problem? How can we make it better? I mean, you're preparing these kids to the real world. This guy is going to be a CEO maybe someday.
Yeah.
So it's like, and in each classroom, I never taught anything, but I think in each classroom, if there are 30 students, there is probably 2 or 3 leaders in that class. 10%, maybe 5%. Then you identify these potential guys, and you put them in a structure. I mean, you don't put them in a rigid role, like you have to be just like this, but it's like, if they go really too off, with your best judgment, because as a teacher, I think you have to be taught of leadership too. If you don't know leadership, you can't teach it or you can't do the right thing. Based on the best judgment and your experience and your education, you take them from the wrong place to the right place. But again, it's planning. Like, you have to put like, what's a good leader? The guy has to be like this. If they go out of the course, then you correct them, basically. But you have to just do the planning up front. That's a good question.
But also, like, while we do planning, like, we give them also for their self-development, what they want. Like, instead of just making, okay, that's what I want you to develop as a teacher, like in the last session you were saying it's really, really hard as a teacher to get critiques or feedbacks from a younger student, but also maybe as adults, like, we need to learn also, like, being criticized by 15-year-old, 13-year-old, what is not good with us. I mean, it's not like we are a bad teacher or bad educator, but maybe it doesn't fit this child. So I think it should be like some part, like, open to improvement, what they want, what they need, and what's their perspective. I think like then we can really talk about like a progressive class and progressive teaching.
Yeah. Sure.
But I agree what Mustafa has been saying, like, I am very true.
So I guess we have to decide how to shape the project in the curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just crazy idea. But why don't you ask your students to open their own company? So they become a CEO. They have to make some product or project.
Like, for example, I would ask them to do, like, now they're in high school still, like, I don't know, like, Bridget's class, what age they are going to be. Do you have an idea?
I think she said high school.
That's what I remember, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so they are going to be 16, 17, more or less. Okay, so it's like a real age to think, what am I going to do in the future, because they are preparing to get into college. So I would ask them, like, what they want to do in next 5 years. Like, that would be, like, the starting point. And then how this course could help them, like what they expect from this course. So what do you want to achieve? Okay, you are going in 1 or 2 years to college, and please plan what you want to achieve until you finish your undergrad. And then how this like write with 5 important points. How, I mean, it's not like a promise I will help all, but we will see because it's like a 3-month course and 2 hours a week. But then maybe there are 2-3 points that everybody needs, and then we can do it in the class. So then give them like how this class can help to achieve this in a way, contribute, and then to design like things according to their needs. And as I said, I cannot like do if there are like 10, 15, 20, and then there are like 100 different, maybe but not. I can do it all, but then we can just choose 2-3 that matches everyone, and then we can achieve it during the course. That's my suggestion.
This is a really good aspect to communicate and, you know, have them the power
Sure,
to lead the whole class. But from my experience, when I taught math, kids ask me, why do you use math? You know, why do you learn math? And I say, if I say it's gonna be good for your life, they're not gonna agree with it. They'll say
You have to show sort of the examples, like
Exactly, I was
really,
going
really
to
sort of the
say,
examples.
yeah.
Like say one guy, you ask them, what do you want to do? I want to be a doctor. Okay, if you
Yeah.
want to be a doctor, you have to take this exam. In the exam, they're going to ask you math. If
Yeah,
you don't
but-
know this, you're not going to pass the exam.
Or
No,
like I
the
saw a book.
purpose of the education, I mean, purpose of the teaching itself is not, I don't know, it's not for passing the test.
I know, but it's just like,
Practically?
it's, how can I say, there's a philosophical thing and the real thing, right? I mean, philosophically, especially if it's a teenager, maybe you can teach this as a college student, but to that guy, they want to see sort of the examples.
Exactly.
Then you see like tangible something. I mean, if it's a master's student, you can say, oh, you're going to increase you're going to be a wise guy, your life is going to shift when you read these courses and stuff like that. But a teenager is not going to have that visibility. They need simple examples. Like, if you don't know math, you can't go to math school. And then it's a great idea to be a doctor, because it's a great job, but you have to do this thing. That's why math is important.
I saw a book like maybe even I saw it like it was translated to Turkish. I saw like if kids start asking such questions, or young people why they need to learn, it's so stupid to learn, and it was like a very simple way of explaining them how it's going to help them in their life, like if they don't know math or if they don't know science, and then it was like explaining with real life examples, like you don't know like this, and then you don't know how to, like the water is going to be boiled in 100 degrees, and then if you drink it, like, you know, your lungs are going to burn or something, or like, you know, you're not going to calculate the prices, or then like people will cheat you. I mean, now I'm just saying things, but it was like very clearly explained even for younger kids, how to explain them with pictures, how it's going to help them. But also I'm assuming like who would come to this class would have some kind of like inner motivation, leadership, and, you know, let's see it.
Is this going to be an elective course that people choose,
Yeah,
or a
it's
mandatory
obligatory.
course?
It's mandatory.
So then the
It's
students
like
are not
they-
choosing this,
they're
they
not
are
choosing.
kind of supposed to take this class,
Right.
because not all of them are going to be willing to take this class. Because if it was elective, some of them, maybe not all of them, some of them would really choose it because they want to. But this is half of the class probably going to be, what is leadership? They have no idea what leadership is.
But I feel like you know, a lot of students don't like school because they don't believe it's relevant to their life.
And
And
that's the
if you
issue.
point out that it's for your life, what we're doing is basically empowering you to be a leader, to be someone after graduating high school. And that's what we.
Yeah, we don't need to teach them leadership at the beginning. We can just have the exercises and just let them have a sense of what a leader is, what kind of leadership I do. And maybe at the end, if it's possible, you can point out to them like, this class is kind of help you develop leadership. And the teacher should have this kind of idea like, I'm developing students' leadership, but we don't need to teach explicitly to students at the beginning that this is leadership.
Yeah, my idea was like you need to point out why they need to do this class, even though it's mandatory. If they don't have motivation, they're not going to be involved in the class much, right? So you don't need to talk about leadership from the beginning, but at least.
I would still talk. I mean, I had a lot of these classes before that. It was a good class. It was chemistry, we did some experiments, something exploded. It's really, really cool thing, right? For a teenager guy, something blew up and something, you know, we had fun. But even though that's a leadership thing that they put us in teams and nobody told us it's about leadership, I didn't know what I was doing. It's good and bad. Good because you don't know, but you're learning it. But it's bad because you don't know what you're exactly doing. If you know that you're trying to be a leader also, that person can go home and then say, Mom, today I learned how to become a good leader because I'm a very good communicator right now. A good leader must have good communication skills. So when I have my team, I have this team that I'm leading, I'm meeting with them every day, I'm calling them to see how the project is going. You motivate them, you say, it may have some disadvantages. I don't want 100% conflict with what you're saying, but it would have advantages too if you tell them leadership is very important. Because you're going to tell them that the reason that you go to school is hopefully you're going to have good jobs in the future. And then in any job that you do, no matter what, people, companies, organizations, they need leadership skills. They need people who change things. So, and then in this class we're going to learn biology and we're going to see how we can learn it in a leader way, in a way that we can show some leadership. That way the kid is going to have some idea of what is this leadership, why is it so important? Then you show them like the CEOs and everything. Again, you're not going to make all of the class leaders. Some of them are going to be real leaders in the future, but even the rest of the team, they're going to have some personal leadership. They're going to do better in their own lives. Because even if you're an individual contributor, if you know the leadership skills, you're more proactive. You can see the big picture better. Even if you're not the CEO of a company, if you're a leader, even if you're a small guy, secretary or whatever, doesn't matter. If you're doing your job well, if you're a leader, you're successful. Everybody wants to see leaders in their organization.
Yeah, especially in this time, like everything is so competitive all over the world, not just in the West. And also, like we emphasized already, like we want them to be active agents. Like, I mean, of course, like we are not expecting them to become like 10, 15 years later, like top CEOs of the big companies, but still do improvements or changes in their environment, in their household, in their neighborhood, in their school, and teach other young people what they know and take initiative. So I think it has been like also the core that we discussed a couple of weeks ago.
I agree. We had to let them see the changes they made through this class. I mean, I think this will be a bigger motivation to kids. So by applying what we learned, they're actually doing something that affects somebody or someplace.
I have an idea.
Crazy one?
No, it's not. It's realistic. So maybe a little bit, but anyway. So as a science teacher or even a math teacher, whatever they teach, they have a lesson objectives every time, or even chapter objectives. As a whole, they have a whole goal. So my idea is that as a science teacher, for example, I will share the objectives of the learning. Let's say for this chapter, our goal is to achieve this, and that. So I will ask them, so how would you achieve that goals? And get some ideas. For example, get some ideas how to do a project to achieve that goal, or how to do some activities to achieve that goal. So bring out their ideas and assign them to have that project, and then let them keep doing that. How about that? And also as a teacher, they can facilitate more and add and more, or adjust a little bit. Or I guess that's
Just one thing, I'm really sorry, I'm interrupting people today so much.
No,
sorry. Like, are you planning some, like, when Bridget starts teaching, are you planning to, like, follow up, like, to ask her how it is going, and then what kind of support she needs from your, like, kind of, like, monitoring the process?
Definitely, yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah, like,
that's why we are doing it. We'd love to share that information we got from Bridget to the current participants.
And then what kind of challenges she had to really implement in the real world, like what were the challenges, and then what kind of support she needed from all of us here, like you're planning
Yeah.
such.
That's what we need actually. It's
Yeah.
like if you are creating a curriculum
Okay.
and if you don't get feedback from it,
Okay,
then how
yeah.
do you know you are doing?
Sure, well, or
Yeah.
what needs to be improved. So
Okay.
interaction will continue
Yes.
when she starts teaching.
Yes.
Okay, that's just what. Maybe we start putting this on a paper, like, I don't know, what, right, I don't know.
Like,
I mean, she's doing it.
She's
better.
writing,
Yeah.
but
yeah, more.
like more we write, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I will try. And then you guys keep talking and like.
And you will write, okay.
Yeah, I will. Secretary.
Secretary, okay.
So can you give more details about what we were just talking about?
So for example, I have a picture now. Anyway, the teacher has some examples of the project, but at the same time, he or she can ask his students, here's what we're gonna go, and here's where we are, how can you achieve that, and through what activities we can get there as a goal.
Hey!
How are you?
Good, how are you? We have been gossiping about you. Yeah, where is this Bridget so we can...
We need you. That's
We need you, that's the reason. Come Bridget. Welcome.
Spend the last like hour and a half or two.
Yeah, that's just what we did last time, and
We were just designing your class.
yeah.
Wow, exciting!
We're designing your class.
Fabulous.
This is the schedule and this is the presentation.
Just do it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So what we are doing right now is that how we can design the project to embed your class.
Okay.
How many are you going to teach, Bridget?
9th grade.
So how old are they? 16?
15, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
And you're teaching biology?
Biology. It should be 2 biology classes and 1 environmental science class, I think.
So, so we are talking about how to embed the project. Is it, I mean, is it as a extracurricular or is it actually integrated and embedded in the standard curriculum? So idea is that to embed it inside, but you know, how can you really design it? That's the problem. That's the question.
Yeah. Okay, so how can we integrate it into the curriculum?
Yeah.
So there's different standards that have to be met throughout just the year for testing, because they have the MCAS in 9th grade.
That's right.
I know. So part of, I think in general, like, because it's pretty easy, I mean, depending on what types of things are met, because like you could do, let's say there's a project on human body, like they're already doing that right now, but if they're doing a leadership type of thing, you could have groups of students and kind of create this atmosphere where it's like, okay, there has to be a leadership thing, and so there's a leadership component to each group. Did you guys cover at all some of the specific things that would be covered? Or like,
Nope, we have
not
to
yet.
go. Not
Okay.
yet. We were waiting.
Okay. So the part that I'll be teaching, we haven't decided exactly yet, but they've covered like the cell and the human body, and then genetics is the very end. So it might be, I don't know, I'm guessing it'll be like evolution-ish sort of area, environmental, ecology, population, other things. I think I have a pretty good feeling that that's the area, the content area that I'll be covering in that class. So
My idea is just talk about that, was that, for example, you have the chapter, you have the objectives of the class, or as a chapter, you share it with the students and saying that, this is where we're gonna go, and this is where we are right now, we know this and that, but we have to achieve these goals or objectives. So ask them to come up with the ideas that how can we achieve that goals, how can we achieve that through what activities, so they have to come up with the idea of the project by themselves.
Yeah.
So they can lead it, and as a teacher can, kind of help them to guide it, to go through it.
Yeah. Also, an idea I know. So with the aquarium, I did get a job there, by the way.
Wow.
Part-time job. Thank you.
Come on, spring.
Yeah, I can bring you guys in for free. So now I'm actually going to be working there, like
Nice.
getting paid.
Yeah.
So it's part-time, but anyways, one of the things that we'll be doing there and trying to integrate into schools that I then would hope to do as doing student teaching, could be like ocean ambassadors, and that's like teaching about how to be leaders of, like environmental sustainability stuff, conservation. Could range also from like what food you're eating, like seafood, because there's a lot of different changes in fish populations with climate change. So something like ocean ambassadors, but it could also be placed, in a different context where it's like you're an ambassador for, whether it's like health or if it's for just kind of advocacy of different issues going on. So do you guys are there specific things that, what have you guys talked about in the past hour? Project management.
Yeah,
Oh, I
presentation
missed
and
it.
stuff.
So sad.
You can,
I'll watch it then.
you have the slides that you can watch.
Perfect, okay.
But what would you think like about teaching leadership, or like how would you start your course?
Yeah, I would probably, let's see, so to start the unit off,
Like the first day of first class or second?
yeah, so the first day or two, we would probably work on identifying leaders, and then I would most likely connect it with leaders in science in the past, like, who makes a good scientist and what kind of leader are they? Are they good at networking? Because like you always, in science, you always have to create collaborations with other universities and like within your university also. And so probably I would talk first about that, because that connects with saying like leadership is important, because to be a successful scientist, you have to know how to talk with people, communicate effectively. So I'd go through that and probably some examples of famous scientists or scientists who have been successful with advocacy. Like there is actually a good example in Africa, in Kenya, Wangari Maathai. She passed away a year ago, but she had been doing, it's called the Green Belt Movement, and it's like planting trees, and that's helping with climate change, but it also addressed greatly the political issues there, because there was a dictatorship and they were deforesting much of the rainforest that was there. And so she started a movement to plant trees, and it was empowering women and helping them to get an income. But it also addressed the deforestation issue, because forests are such a big carbon sink for, just a big carbon sink. So it's really important for getting the carbon out of the atmosphere that's contributing to climate change. So like that might be a good example too, because it kind of touches on a lot of social areas, as well as like the science. So maybe that would be a good model to start with.
Do you have to follow up all the for example, when I taught, the district gave me the schedule that on this day you have to teach this, you have to teach this, you have to teach that.
Yeah.
Do you have to follow it?
probably similar, but it seems like it's very loose. Like you just
Okay.
have to, so I just met with them last week, or this week, I guess. And it sounds like, so the main teacher I'll be working with, she has structured her class, like right now she's doing a project on the human body, and each group has a different system, and then they're working on PowerPoint presentations that they have to turn in, and there's also like a poster that they have to make. And the last one, what is it? They're writing questions for a quiz. So it's these different things, and each person in that group has a different role. And so it could be also modeled off of that, where they learn how to take different roles and like manage their group project.
How many people are in these groups?
So the one right now, I think it looked like the group size was like 4 people. And then there were probably 7 groups or so. There were just under 30 students.
Is there a group leader or everybody's equal?
It seemed interesting because some of the students were like, oh, this person isn't doing anything. You know, there's always the high school student issues of people just like not participating or listening to their iPhone or texting, not paying attention. So there's like the definite realities of high school students not really wanting to do anything or not participating. But there seemed to always be one person who is taking the lead because we have to turn this in at the end of class, or, oh, we have to email this to her.
So
And
it's like an unofficial leader? Or
Yeah,
does it
it looked like unofficial leaders, but I really like that Smithsonian workshop that I went to. They had these cards, and it's like moderator card type of things, or it's like you're the moderator, you're the scribe, or you are the presenter, you know, so like, and we were handed these different cards so that each person had a different role. And so I was talking to the teacher later about it. I was like, you should, like have these cards and just be like, this is your role, because it's so hard to direct high school students to take the lead and say, oh, I'll do this. But if you're giving them a specific role, then hopefully they'll feel responsible and tied to that role.
Is
So-
there a hierarchical, like, the reason that I'm asking is, I mean, normally in the real world, how it works is, mostly, not always, there is one leader, and there is the people behind it. Like, remember when, who was that? There was a gentleman from Harvard, the presentation, he showed, Josh, he showed the
Yeah.
snowflake model.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
central system, and there are the subordinates of the central
Yeah.
system, which are delegated.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can, like, the
Information
central
comes
system
through.
can be like a teacher, and those can be like leadership teams, which is like managed by just one leader. Because the thing is, in real world, it's mostly one guy who has the responsibility. He's gonna have the team, he's gonna be the team leader. If something goes wrong, you're gonna be dealing with that guy, not his presenter. So it's kind of putting responsibility to one person, and it's putting pressure on that person, which is real world scenario. If something
Yeah.
got, maybe sometimes he's not the real leader, he's not the good leader because he's texting guys, girls, whatever, he's not doing his job, then maybe you can swap the leaders, or maybe another person in the team has better leadership skills and sees this person like, I should have been the leader, why that person? But that's also good because in the future that person can be a leader. So if you assign somebody and give him responsibility, you're gonna have the real thing. And you're gonna see that when the project is late, he's gonna be responsible. So you are giving an idea of that, this is a team, you are the leader, but if one person makes a mistake, everybody suffers. If the project is good, everybody is rewarded, but there is only one person. So
And they
then
can
you
switch?
no, you usually don't switch, and
Yeah.
unless they have to, you usually like pressure the leader and work with the leader and watch how the leader is working with his people. And then the communication skills, does he do the leadership, does he call them every day? You ask him like, how's your presentation going? Do you have the poster ready? And then he communicates with his team. This is like a real world leadership thing. And then, this way we can, you can watch if they're having personal conflicts, somebody's not doing his job, so there's going to be a team pressure towards that person. Why are you not, you were supposed to get the, poster from Staples, why didn't you go there? So that person is gonna not do the same mistake again. You start watching the team dynamics at that point, which is exactly what you want to do. There's leadership, team dynamics, communication, and you just watch these things from outside. I think it's going to be a lot of fun too. And then and watch the leader leading the team. And the leaders can communicate with the other teams too. Maybe they need some help. Because they have a point which overlaps with another group's project, they work together to lower the costs, or maybe they have the same poster that they want to use. I don't know, something. And then when you have a meeting as a teacher, you just meet with the team leaders, not with their people. Like an executive thing. I mean, in a company, there's a CEO and CTO, CFO, CMO, all kinds of guys. The CEO doesn't talk with the guy who's doing the job. He talks with their managers. And I think they may be scientists, they may be business people. Most of them are going to see that kind of hierarchical thing. Big guy and his subordinates and their subordinates. That whole organizational diagram. I think that will be more realistic. That's the real world. You want to prepare these guys to the real world. And then you're going to see also competition, conflict, all kinds of things. You're getting them ready to the real world.
And what about if a teacher is meeting with the team leaders, having the other groups communicate with each other and get into pods almost of, okay, the people making a poster get together and share ideas, or if you're struggling, like how are you working on the poster, or the people making the PowerPoint, if that's something they're doing.
It's a great idea because it's like the CEOs talking, right? If one poster, let's say that you're the teacher, you're meeting with them. Two team leaders can talk and say, my guy is having a hard time finding a good poster. How did you solve this problem? And the guy says, oh, don't worry. One of my members' mom she has a copy shop. Let's just do it. It's cheap. It's we can do it overnight. Then you can work with the other teams. So unless you're competing with the other teams, everybody is your resource. You can work with them. So you want to also empower that kind of leadership. Like you tell your leaders, do whatever it takes. Talk with your team, talk with other teams to get things done. Which is, you gave a great example. They can communicate with each other.
Yeah, and there's also, I just remembered, there will be a science fair in the spring that could be integrated into this, so that there's going to be a real real presentations for it that the public can come see, and there has to be science judges judging the science of it, and so that might be interesting too. For why should they compete? Because if you win the science fair, then I'm not sure what happens, but I think the school is going to give a prize, or there's something. So that could be a cool, either looking at if it's like a competitive model where students are competing to make this thing, or if they're collaborating, but also still competing. It's like, oh, but our whole team has to work together, versus everyone's doing their part right. I think that would make it good.
Yeah. Even if they compete, they can help each other. I mean, in an industry, there are 5 companies sometimes, but 2 companies sometimes help each other. Let's say Toyota and Subaru works together on a car model to lower their costs. They just did it with one. There's a cool car that's the same car has Toyota brand and the Subaru brand. The reason that they did it together is they lowered the cost of the development of the car. So instead of doing themselves, they share the costs. So you can also collaborate, work with your competitor, as you said.
Okay. So did you guys discuss so this will be implemented?
How about we go in this way? We can pick one of the topics that you will teach next week, next semester, and we can design a project-based learning lesson. And at the same time, the whole framework can be flexible to be used in another class.
Okay. Yeah. It's like the model
Right.
is
Like
applicable to any
Right,
any
right,
kind of class.
right. Like divide the groups and pick the leaders and the whole.
So it's almost like there's various strategies in the general methods course that I had taken this summer, and it's very similar to like looking at the leadership and working in groups, where I think it's called a jigsaw puzzle, where there's the jigsaws. There's student. I don't know if you saw this in any of the classes, but where the students in the class would have different problems that they're working on, and then they would one person from each group, they get together and it's kind of like they debrief the other group on what they're
Inclusive
doing.
learning, or kind of like there are different stations. For example, teacher identifies in the first or second like lesson what kind of children, young people she or he has in the class, and then she or the teacher prepares the class materials and activities according to their needs. For example, she puts like, let's say there are she identifies 5 different learning styles, like some learn with writing, so then she prepares like pen and paper materials to teach them like ocean, and then others want to do like look some things on internet, then 3 goes there, so then to give, and then at the end like they come as a group and debrief, and then like maybe say a few words at the end of the class what they have been doing and sharing with others, and that's what you were talking about. Inclusive learning, they call it. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, and then there's others. So, okay, a model.
Are we on the same
Yeah.
page?
I don't know.
Sorry?
Are we all on the same page?
Same page? I mean, yeah, I follow, I do some things. I'm trying to find it for violence.
Just make sure.
That's a cool way to, like, if you have a lot of different learners, different types of learners, then...
Like this.
Yep, exactly.
Doing something
Then each person contributes what they're good at or what they're interested in, because then you also get more participation, I think, because it's very hard. The school that I'll be in, it looks very difficult to motivate. And no, it's a charter school, but it is under Boston Public Schools. It's called the Boston Green Academy. It's right by Carson Beach in South Boston. Yeah, so it's a very big classroom also. So there's a lot of space to do things in. So yeah, and there are a lot of the population. I think in the classrooms that I'll have, it's 10% English language learners, and then I couldn't really tell, but I know that in Boston Public Schools in general, it's 40. Yeah, it's very diverse, definitely, and I think 20% or 30% have IEPs, individualized learning. What does the E stand for?
Individual education plan?
Education plan, thank you.
You're welcome.
Individualized education plan. The E with the E stand for education.
And how many students in the one classroom?
It looks like between 20 and 30.
Not too big.
Yeah.
It's a good start course, nice.
Yeah. So I can get the specifics actually from the school headmaster about the percentages, but that's just something to keep in mind in general for designating roles, because I know that I witnessed, like, there was a fire alarm during the day when I was there, and I was listening to one of the girls, and she was like, he doesn't even understand what I'm saying because he can't speak English that well. And I was like, oh wow, this is like a large barrier in group work.
He doesn't understand English.
No, but
So-
it's a good opportunity. We have to learn how to communicate.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
people. And then-
So it's like, what role can that student take without just feeling alienated and like, oh, I can't really do anything, because they're still expected. Every student's expected to do the work, So that'll be an interesting thing. I like the snowflake style where like teachers are meeting, because then also it it might make students feel like, oh, I want to have, you know, like be in that leader group or whatever. But I also like the pod idea. Then also like, so if the teachers are meeting with the leaders of the groups, then the other students can be in pods of like, this is each group, each like moderator come together and discuss your methods or something, and each person that's working on a presentation kind of help each other with like, oh, I know how to use PowerPoint, or oh, I know how to change the animation on that. So I feel, because some of the kids knew what they were doing, and then some were just like, I have never used PowerPoint before, like, what do you do? So I like that.
Among the topics that you talk about, human body and cell genders, which part do you think is most feasible to have a project-based learning?
Probably the evolution and ecology populations. So because the first three will have already been covered or will be covered at the very end of the school year. And so the time that I'll be in the classroom I'm guessing it's in that part, because that list that you made, the human body, cell, genetics, evolution, and ecology, those are the major themes that are covered, I believe, that are explored. And so, since she hadn't named those, I think that that's the focus. And that's what I'll definitely be doing that in the environmental class. So we could make it, what kind of theme would you want to do, like ocean stuff, or do you guys like the tree thing?
Can you elaborate more on evolution?
Yeah. So for evolution, okay. So for evolution, I think what's typically covered would be looking at, for example, there's in the Galapagos Islands, you can see the changes in beak finches, and there's a famous book called Beak of a Finch, where as the weather changes, the populations also change with regards to if their beak is very big, so they can crack hard seeds that might be there if it's very dry, or they will start to have smaller beaks if the weather has been very wet, because there's like more berries around. And so there's a book of these changes happening and changes recorded. So like talking about that, and then how I would totally bring in, you know, evolution of different diseases, and probably talk about bacteria resistance and viruses, and how there's changes that we see in that, because there's different mutations that will happen in some pets.
I love that.
Yeah, so like I think that's really a cool thing to talk about with, because it applies to health issues and global issues all over. So that would be an interesting one. As well as in the ocean with coral bleaching, because there's corals in different parts. That one's a lot more complicated though, actually, but we can put it down in. But there's a lot of like coral biology that I would have to talk about. But I think like the health aspect would be very feasible, because it's something everyone can connect to. Or even, you know, just with populations, an interesting thing could be, and this could actually be very well integrated in the spring with across different countries with like United Classrooms, is looking at the flowering times of leaves or just flowers, and because that's actually changing also with climate change. And so looking at, you know, how has plant population changed, or when do we see the flowers coming out this year, you know, and just communicating with other classrooms about that. And then projects with that would incorporate leadership that would be more field-based though, so that might be a little difficult, because students would actually have to go out and do something, and that's assuming, oh, you don't have a job, you know, because some students might have a job after school, or might not have access to like oh, I'm going to go to a park. Like that might not be an option for them. Populations. Yeah, I think the diseases one would be a really cool one. Or you could look at trees, you know, and use the Green Belt movement, because there's tree projects going on all over the world now, because it was started back in '77, and now there's like, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 projects around the world in different areas, including the US, which is cool. Yes, surprisingly. So yeah, trees and. Do you guys like that? Like,
No, I think it's amazing, like what you have been talking, like I'm glad she came because it was like, you know,
Concrete, like concrete.
exactly, like that's what I was getting, like so many good ideas are coming, that's why like let's write was this suggestion, nothing else, like so many good ideas were coming but nothing was really like leading us somewhere, that's what I felt. So it's really good to have her because now she's getting like very concrete things so we can build up and support her, that's what I'm feeling now.
Right.
cool. Exciting.
Yeah, so we were waiting for you.
I'm glad I could.
Sorry, Bridget.
It's okay. It's like
because of
being
excitement.
thrown $1, you know, except it's a pencil. Educationally oriented.
That's why I want to tell it.
I like the health aspect a lot.
Which aspect?
Health
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah.
So
I like it too.
because she will combine it to global aspect and
Right.
background, so
And
it's
also
like
that's really linked to their personal
Mhm.
statement.
And they will have learned, like right now they're learning the body system, so they'll already have that foundation of, you know, the human body and what different aspects. So, and it also does change with, I can always tie in more climate change stuff, because with malaria, for example, there will be, and I'm pretty sure there are already higher instances of, in general actually, vector-borne diseases. So malaria is carried by mosquitoes, and their range is increasing because of temperatures or because of rain. And so it's increasing, but also in this area of the United States, Lyme disease. Are you guys familiar with Lyme disease?
Coming from out of the country.
Pardon?
Coming from out of the country, it's not originated.
It's in the,
It is.
it's out of, it actually started, the first case was in Connecticut, a long time ago, but it's carried by a tick that's very tiny, and it's like in the woods, if you get this tick bite, sometimes it doesn't show up, but it's almost like a lifelong disease where there's like problems with your joints, and just like feeling really sick, and there's all sorts of stuff, but a lot of people actually, not a lot, but a good amount of people have it, like it's a big concern, and it's been rapidly increasing with climate change, and like you can see a map, it's like starting to spread a lot more, the incidences.
The US is so careful with such things. Like I remember like just coming in September, you start to be warned, like if you have any vegetables or something, just leaving the plane. I was like, what? Where are we going? So I was like, oh my god, I have one apple I put in Germany. Let me eat it before the flight. Like really, it's just last 45 minutes, and I had it really like it was warned. And then we are giving paper like, please like leave all the meat stuff and whatever. I was like, oh my god, what is this? And I was eating the sandwich and apple before I landed to the US.
I think because like bugs you can't really control. Like you can do preventative.
And they ask it when you're into the United States, like if you have this and this, like any vegetables, like still they ask, and then they control again, like in the outside door. I was like, oh my god.
Especially with the raw materials.
Yeah, so they were like so careful. I thought EU is more like they're not that strict in the EU.
So that's another, so like the evolution aspect, and then also populations, I'm not sure the mechanisms, but like it could hit on populations if there's like vector-borne diseases. Do you mind actually writing that in for diseases next to it? It's like, vector-borne, so
Vector-borne.
Vector, and then, born, so like
Born.
B-O-R-N-E.
Born.
Born. Diseases. Or, that's okay, vector-borne. Because that could cover evolution and climate change and populations. So I think that's a good, like disease is a good safe
start from there and then relate to others.
Yeah, and very applicable to, you know, like social, social aspects
Keep it.
in different countries, public health, safety. And, you know, like a model could be the management. It's like, oh, how are we going to approach this problem? You know, we don't want, there could be an urgency aspect of, oh, this, you know, like we can't have this number of people getting sick. What are you going to do? Like, here's your mission today. Work on this and prevent the spread of this disease. So I think it's a fun, a kind of a fun one too, because it's like, oh no, here's the problem. What are we going to do? There's actually a lot of cool experiments that you can do as well, where it's like you're sharing fluids with different like test tubes, and you can do indicators to see who has the disease. So yeah, that would be really interesting. Cool. Very exciting.
And also, like, you link in this class when you're teaching, like, you will give examples from different parts of the world, or
Oh yeah.
yeah, like what's happening, as you were saying, like with this global warming and how it's changing. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds really perfect.
Definitely. Because it's very, yeah. And like tuberculosis, TB would be one of the bacteria that would be explored, because the rates of tuberculosis are going back up again because of resistance and all sorts of.
I think of there's a Mayo Clinic. I'm not sure it's in Minnesota. Well, they have a hospital, but they treat patients from all over the world. And then patients from different parts of the world have different disease, and then they come to this clinic and they have special service geared toward patients from each country. They not only treat them, but they have, for example, they have prayer room for Muslim patients. So you go to this room and then you have your special kind of, we respect your cultural traditions, but also we treat your disease. And something to kind of making projects.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I just have a question. So for a class like science class or biology class, I think it feels more easier to design global education in the real classroom, because many topics of class is related to global issues like global warming or health aspect. But what about other classes like math class or English class that many topics is not related to global issues? How can we develop this kind of global leadership incorporated
So,
into class?
I think just the model though might serve well. So you can pick a problem that is going to fit that model. So, like in English.
For example, I know in math class, from my research, like a teacher was trying to teach like not just math, like okay, you are going to learn this task today, calculate whatever, but then she was talking about like science was not just developed in Europe, for example, like it's not just coming from Europe, because children might think, like especially younger ones, like in the 5th or 6th grade, like oh, it's all European, because they hear everything comes from West and US or Europe. So they were like, she was teaching and showing, oh, by the way, like this person contributed, he comes from this, and there are also like